Good morning, afternoon, evening to you all, whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome to this Zaire Institute for Restorative Justice webinar. Today, our webinar is about restorative justice for Black girls, a humanizing and healing praxis, with our guests Tanya Walls, Layla Juniel, Anaya Wilson, Gianna Perry, Naika Belazaire, with our host Michaela McRae. And I will add Michaela to this and let Michaela take it from here. Thank you, Michaela.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you all in the virtual space. So a little bit about our webinar today. Who understands the needs of young people better than young people themselves? Code Switch, Restorative Justice for Girls of Color, shifts power and decision-making to the people who know best, impacted youth. Traditional leadership hierarchies are eliminated and young people take the lead in offering innovative solutions to address community challenges. Focused on building a shared understanding of what youth power and leadership can look like in K-12 spaces, this webinar explores the power of youth leadership to confront school pushout and the other systemic barriers that Black and other girls of color face inside the Clark County's classrooms and schools. We'll also discuss how Code Switch leverages the diverse lived experiences and identities of the girls they serve to explore how schools and communities can create empowered learning spaces where young people thrive, achieve, and lead. So I also want to take a moment to name that the young people who will be leading this webinar are also students, meaning that they have academic commitments that they need to shuffle. And there is at least one student who will be coming a little later and one who won't be able to make it because they're attending their classes. So I'm going to introduce our participants today, starting with Dr. Tanya Walls. Dr. Walls is an independent scholar and K-16 plus educator who is equally passionate about teaching, service, and scholarship. Her work focuses on amplifying the voices and experiences of Black students, families, and communities, and dismantling systems of oppression rooted in race and racism. Her research interests include culturally relevant pedagogy, the school-to-prison pipeline, Black teacher counterspaces, racial justice for Black girls and women, and social justice leadership. Anaya Amara Wilson is currently a sophomore attending Howard University, studying elementary education. She graduated from Monterey Trail High School in Elk Grove, California. In Code Switch, she is a Youth Justice Fellow and a part of the Youth Advocacy Board. Her proudest accomplishment is moving across the country to pursue higher education. She stands for Black girls and gender-expansive youth because they deserve to be valued like any of their peers. In her work with Code Switch, she hopes to make everyone she comes into contact with feel they are valued. Layla Juniel, I'm not sure if she's in the room with us yet. Layla's bio is written in first person, so I'm going to read it that way. I'm attending the University of Nevada, Reno, studying veterinary science and biochemistry. I graduated from Nevada State High School, and I hold a role as a Youth Justice Fellow and member of the Youth Advisory Board. I am proud to be graduating with my second collegiate degree at the young age of 19 years old. I stand for Black youth and gender-expansive individuals because I would love to provide opportunities for them since I wish I had this kind of experience earlier growing up, and because I want to pour back into my community, as I wouldn't be here without them. I would love to spread more of Code Switch's work and mission across many communities and bring restorative justice to many other Black girls and gender-expansive youth. Naika Belazaire. Ms. Naika Belazaire is a second-year undergraduate at Howard University, a graduate of Advanced Technologies Academy in Las Vegas, and the co-director of Code Switch Restorative Justice for Girls of Color. They are an aspiring attorney with a focus on equity for the African-American community and other marginalized people. Their current activism is focused on creating safe spaces for Black girls, women, and gender-expansive youth, gender-expansive youth, as well as school and work, and implementing Black history education in schools throughout Nevada. So, if you all have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in wherever they go. I don't know if there's a chat or if there's specifically a Q&A feature, but we'll have time for questions at the end of the presentation. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to our presenters.
Hello, everybody. My name is Naika, as y'all know, and this is our presentation called Restorative Justice for Black Girls, Humanizing and Healing Informed Praxis, where you'll be learning about leveraging RJ to amplify youth leadership and advocacy. So hello, we are Code Switch. This is the organization that each and every one of us work at or just are in community at, actually. Code Switch, we are an intergenerational community of Black women, girls, gender expansive people, women of color, or other racial justice co-conspirators that want to delve into this racial justice work with us. Each of us are committed to gender equity, racial justice, and the liberation of Black girls. But it's also important to know that in this presentation, as well as when I'm saying it out loud, Code Switch uses the term girls inclusively. This term refers to the wide range of cisgender girls, transgender girls, gender nonconforming youth, gender queer youth, any girl-identified youth or person. The term youth in this presentation also will refer to people that are between the ages of 14 and 24 and could include youth that are younger, since a lot of our programming also serves young girls as young as the age of 9. And at Code Switch, in order to really cultivate or curate this work, we create healing spaces, mentored experiences, and opportunities for our youth to be able to lead justice-focused change within themselves as well as their communities. So in this path forward, we'll be starting off with grounding experience, and then defining and discussing youth leadership. What does youth leadership actually look like within Code Switch? And then going into tips for either being a youth leader or amplifying youth leadership in your community, and then closing out.
So, hi everyone. I will be going over our land and labor acknowledgement. And each time Code Switch has an event in general, we like to acknowledge this just to acknowledge the people whose labor went into building America and whose land that we are on. So I'm actually from Sacramento, so I'll be sharing the people who are native to that land. So Sacramento was the gathering place for many local tribes, and it is the Niasan people was the tribe that were native. They have lived throughout the Central Valley and the foothills for generations and were the original stewards of this land. And we would like to acknowledge the Southern Maidu people of the North, the Valley Plains, Miwok people of the South of the American River, and the Potawatomi Wet'suwet'en peoples of the west of the Sacramento River. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So here in Code Switch, we are really big on community, and especially when we gather in spaces, we like to recognize who all is present with us. And a huge principle we really is significant to us is Ubuntu. I am because you are because I am, we are one. This African philosophy is really significant to us as it emphasizes the importance of like community, especially with the work that we do, and just like acknowledging different backgrounds, and we are a collective group together.
Okay. So before we begin, one thing that is very important to us in Code Switch, as well as in all the work that we do, is taking intentional methods towards engaging our community. And a part of this is grounding. So before we begin, I want to start us off with this amazing quote by Audre Lorde. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. I really want everyone to try to keep this in mind during this presentation, as well as in the everyday part of your life. Self-care is one of the most important parts, because in order to show up for anyone else in your life, you have to make sure you show up for yourself first. So while we're thinking of that and of all the amazing things we're going to be learning here, I want everyone to take a second and just breathe in and breathe out. While we're doing this, you can close your eyes, Put your hands on your legs in any way to center yourself. Put your feet on the ground and just take another breath in and breathe out. Do it one more time just to make sure we're really settled in. One breath in and then breathe out. Okay, and then we will move on. Oh, give me 1 second. There you go.
So defining and discussing youth leadership. A couple questions. What truly is youth leadership and what does youth leadership look like? And we'll get into that.
So some questions while we're doing this presentation to keep in mind are just, what does youth leadership look like to you? Have you seen youth leadership in your community? And have you seen youth leadership show up? And how have you seen this youth leadership show up in your community? Oh, okay. So sorry. Little technical difficulties. I don't know how to make the video play from here. So we'll just have to think on our feet and move on. That video would have talked about what a lot of youth, their ideas of what youth leadership looks like. But instead, I guess how about we have each other talk about what youth leadership looks like to me. So in my eyes, youth leadership is having youth be able to unapologetically show up as themselves, as who they are, and be known as people rather than seen as just children. Anaya?
I would have to agree 100%, and I would give props to Code Switch as an organization, just creating the Youth Advisory Board, really practicing what we preach and wanting to have youth as the leaders. And while adding this board, I really feel like that has really shown that as well.
Layla?
Yeah, so for me, youth leadership honestly is just about like uplifting our young individuals and having them involved with their community. And this can look differently for everyone. But overall, I just think that, having that engagement, being able to have like students be a part of their community and take that initiative and just do things that they're passionate about, really giving back is something that I hold near and dear to me.
And Tanya?
Thank you, Naika. As the non-youth on the panel, I'd just like to say that what youth leadership means for me is adults like myself silencing our voices, stepping away from our adultism, and the idea that we need to pour into youth and sort of direct their path, and really listening to them, and then providing and opening pathways for them to lead, and trusting that they will do so. And I struggle with that a lot as an adult, but I think the thing that I'm most inspired by when we do this work is really learning more and more each day how to open pathways for youth to lead. And so I think this is the perfect embodiment of what it means to let youth lead and to nurture youth leadership.
Thank you, Tanya. So all in all, youth leadership is giving youth or young people the space, the time, the skills, resources, mentorship, experiences, whatever it is, give them whatever they need to become the change agents in their community that they want to be. Passing to Anaya.
Okay, so I will go over some core components of youth leadership. So this includes skills, reflection, action, as well as agency. So leadership skills are essential for young people to feel satisfaction and contribute to their community. Action. In order to learn to be a leader, young people need to take action and learn from those experiences. What this means is instead of showing the youth how to do something, show them and then ask them to join you so they can learn through action and develop those skills. Reflection. Reflection allows youth to analyze their past, learn from their experience, and hear different perspectives. Agency. Youth need to be the agency in space to be a leader in order to be confident in their abilities. Learn to step back.
So one of the ways that youth leadership can show up in communities is referenced with this ladder. Basically, at the bottom of the ladder is rung 1, and this is kind of like one of the worst ways to, I guess, engage with youth. And then at the top is one of the best ways to engage with youth and uplift youth leadership. The first 3 are actually where youth have no participation in the community work that you are doing. And the first 3 would be young people are being manipulated, are being used as decoration, or are being tokenized. And these methods, it can look as if the youth in the spaces are not being heard at all, or rather the youth in the spaces are being used as a token to fake youth leadership or youth focused work in your environment. This can look like an organization saying, we are youth led, and having a youth person show up as their manager, but that youth is being told what to do, like everything to do by an adult. So rather than giving that youth agency to truly show up as a leader they are actually being manipulated by the adults in the room to give a front rather than actually allow them to have the agency needed to show up as a leader. The next rung, which is better, is youth being assigned and informed. This would look like just telling a young person what to do, and that's just it. The next one are young people are being consulted and informed rather than solely telling a young person what to do. This is asking for their advice, asking for what do you think, and actually taking in their experiences and allowing that to inform your work. The next one is adult initiated shared decisions with young people. This will look like an adult coming to a young person and saying, hey, I have this project, or we're working on this together, and I would love your decisions on this. What do you think? Like, let me know. And things like that. And then the next one would be how young people are leading and initiating action. So this can look like a young person leading their own project, and they're the ones doing the actions. They're the ones taking on the responsibilities and things in that way. And the top one, the best, is young people and adults are sharing decision making. This can look like young people sharing spaces with adults and are on equal level, and their opinions are equally valued and wanted, and they are a part of all the decisions being made. So not only, like, one of the reflection questions asked here is, where are you or your org on this ladder? Where can you place yourself? And, how can you, if you are on one of the lower ones, like, reflect to get better? And if you are already at the top, how can you keep doing your work to continue amplifying that youth leadership? I'm going to pass it on to Layla.
Okay, so we are going to look more into what exactly youth leadership looks like, specifically in Code Switch. So in regards to like our overall mission and values and like how we get youth involved and how like the roles that they play within Code Switch is that we want to eradicate educational like inequities that Black and other girls as well as gender expansive youth may face in different kinds of environments, from school to like their personal lives and just more. And we also envision like schools and communities where Black girls and gender expansive youth can be their authentic selves, show up as who they are, be proud in who they are, but also having like a place to thrive and just achieve their goals and missions and whatever they want to do. So it's better, so who better to tell and show us how to curate these spaces and what is needed than the youth themselves? So it's really important that we emphasize youth voices. And when it comes to adults, it is okay to kind of shut down and not just have their voices like ride like youth voices, because they are very vital at the end of the day.
So here's our leadership structure, the leadership team. So Code Switch takes a restorative approach to board service. Our board comprises a multi-generational group of Black girls, women, and gender expansive people working in a mentored relationship to collectively guide the work of the organization. So for example, I am on the Youth Advisory Board, and my role is social media. So I am being mentored right now on how to find topics, how to create posts, and put them out for social media.
And then I, in reference to this board, am the co-executive director as well as the chair of the Youth Advisory Board. And Layla?
Yes, so I work with youth engagement. I also work alongside Gianna. We are currently working on our volunteers program, where we have our change makers, where we get youth involved in their community by providing volunteer opportunities and just a way to get in the door with Code Switch and become leaders of their own.
Exactly. And unfortunately, all of our other Youth Advisory Board members could not be here, but yeah, they're all in school right now. And if y'all can remember what it was like, or if you are in school and you know what it's like during exam season, it's a little rough, but they are all doing amazing work within Code Switch and leading, like showing up in terms of youth leadership. We have Gianna, who is our community engagement chair, Danae, who is our finance and fundraising chair, and then Deja, who is our grant writing chair. And if you can think back to the ladder that we showed you before, this is a great example of the top one, and having youth be in the same space as adults when it comes to decision making. This Youth Advisory Board is one of our biggest forms of leadership in Code Switch, and this shows how us youth are not only present but also leading. Passing it to Anaya.
So the why. Black girls in grades K through 12, kindergarten through 12, are 4 to 6 times more likely to be expelled and or suspended from school. So they are targeted. They are 4 times more likely to be arrested on school campus and 2 times as likely to be subject to restraint at school. As a result, and at alarming rates, Black girls experience school-induced collective trauma more than any other group of girls.
Layla?
So Code Switch's role, like our solution to our why. So eradicating, so exclusionary and punitive discipline in K through 12 schools, and decrease the number of Black girls and gender expansive youth that are pushed out due to these policies. And this can be seen through like restorative justice practices, like doing sister circles and more. We also want to increase the number of Black girls and gender expansive youth who have access to culturally affirming restorative justice practices while in school, so having those opportunities available for them. And we also want to strengthen the pipeline of Black women and gender expansive leaders, providing mentorship to Black girls and gender expansive youth.
One of the ways that we start off with our first pillar, which is mentorship, or in this way, critical mentorship, is by one of our programs called Rose from Concrete. Rose from Concrete is, of course, led by youth, that youth being myself. And it's a summer peer mentorship program in which basically the mission of the program is to match girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth of color from grades 4 through 8 with their high school counterparts, which are girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth of color in grades or high school. And basically they collaborate with one another, and they work together and learn together and just come into community together every Friday and during the summer to learn how to be leaders in their community, to learn how to love oneself, because of course loving yourself is one of the biggest parts of understanding that no matter where you come from, you can go anywhere. And also to foster a career or passion or entrepreneurial focused mindset. All of this to show them that they are roses from concrete. No matter what background they're put in, no matter what stereotypes are put on them, no matter what other people think of them, no matter their own doubts, anything, they will always grow like a rose.
Restorative advocacy. So in Code Switch, we have a program. It's Transformative Justice Fellows, or the TJF. And these are women and gender expansive people of color that are educators. And so through this program, they receive a stipend, they get curricular support, and personalized coaching so they can facilitate restorative circles for girls negatively impacted by things like poverty, racial discrimination, and or other barriers. So they host Sankofa Sister Circles, so fellows train to lead their own sister circles at their own school sites, things like that, to provide healing spaces for students. And right above the description is a picture of one taking place, and then there are restorative justice courses available for these teachers to learn on how to have access to courses and workshops to provide those for anybody they see fit.
So youth-led advocacy. So our Youth Justice Fellowship, our Youth Justice Fellows, those that are involved with the program are typically high school students that are passionate about improving girls, gender expansive youth access to equal education. Each fellow earns a stipend and is paired with a mentor to develop an actionable justice project to transform schools and communities for the better. And then we also have our Overachievers Education Fund. This fund was developed to provide microgrants to students in need of financial support with access to educational opportunities. And since the program was launched in February of 2022, we have distributed over $5,000 to 24 plus students across the Las Vegas Valley. And these funds can be used towards like school costs, for family use, personal use, anything that these students may need. That is all for them.
And one of the things that I think is very important to talk about here is our Overachievers Education Fund is also another one of our youth-led programming led by our amazing Deja Dunlap. And it was started, as well as the Rose from Concrete program, with the Youth Justice Fellowship. Not only is this a Youth Justice Fellowship one of the biggest ways to invite youth into Code Switch, but it also, a part of the program at the end of it, allows, after teaching youth about leadership, about coming to your community, about community and restorative justice and all those amazing components, at the end, it allows or gives youth an opportunity to have their own passion project with a stipend, as well as mentorship and support, advice, whatever it is from Code Switch. This amazing program was able to not only create most of the youth-led programming that we have in Code Switch today, again, referencing Overachievers Fund, the Rose from Concrete, as well as another program we're going to be talking about right after this. But I think all of our Youth Advisory Board were participants of the Youth Justice Fellowship. Anaya and Layla, if y'all want to talk about your experience with that.
Sure. So being a Youth Justice Fellow, so I kind of got introduced to it, I want to say a little over a year ago. I was actually, transitioning into college, and this is kind of how I got connected with Code Switch as well. So basically, we were able to meet a few times, like every other week, and we basically came together. We had books that we read, and it basically taught us different ways to be like a youth advocate, or just like a youth leader in the community, and how to kind of play to my strengths, and just kind of do what I'm passionate about. And throughout the entire duration of the fellowship, we did get connected to mentors based off of what our passion project kind of consisted of. So for me personally, I wanted to kind of pursue something to where students had access to like after school programs, and this could be having their family involved. And these type of after school programs could be tied into like culinary. So families that were facing like issues such as like food insecurity, they would have a space where they would have resources that would aid in those issues. And I got connected with a mentor in like the Las Vegas area to just kind of work towards that. My passion project is still kind of in development. I've kind of had to put a halt on it, but overall, I think that it provided me with a lot of resources on ways that I can be engaged with different types of leaders within my own community and find and recognize ways that I can help students in need, especially in those environments where they may not have access to a lot of resources or that their school may not be providing them.
So my experience is really similar. We were in the program at the same time, and we were tasked with having a passion project, like we mentioned, and I chose to do a mentorship program, and it is called A Seat at the Table. Still in the process. The name is inspired by the Shirley Chisholm's quotes, and I was paired up with someone actually from my hometown, Sacramento, because the person who I worked with there actually a mentor for a program, so I thought what better person to get paired up with to mentor me was someone who is mentoring right now. And even though Code Switch is based out of Nevada, I was still given so much support being a state away in California.
Thank you. Okay, and one of our other youth-led programs is our Youth Participatory Research. This is a survey led by our amazing Danae Dunlap, and it was inspired by Danae because one of the quotes that we use is, who better to tell us how to create change than the people themselves, our youth. So it was created to amplify the voices and capture the school experience of self-identified Black girls, so that way we could examine their stories and analyze them and be able to create or lead solutions based on their own ideas, their own stories, and also bring these Black girls into the space so that they may be able to lead their own story, to lead their own change as well. And now, one of the great ways to show not only how our programming uplifts and inspires youth leadership, but it also, outside of it, has given a lot of us the courage or just the support needed to be leaders outside of Code Switch as well. Of course, with Code Switch's help or with the inspiration of the work that we do here. So one of the youth justice achievements is that I was able to, with a connection that Tanya gave me, I was able to help lobby to pass Senate Bill 327 in Nevada, which is Nevada's version of the Crown Act. If you're unfamiliar with the Crown Act, it is an act that prohibits any form of hair-based discrimination within that state. And this can look like hair-based discrimination, whether in schools or in your job area. If you can think of, there are stories of students who were suspended or discriminated against in some form because of the way that their hair looked like. I was one of those students at the time. I was sent to detention simply because of an afro that I wore to school. And it just really put me down. But because of this bill, the impact that you've seen in Nevada is so many students being able to freely and apologetically be themselves in school and express themselves via their hair without fearing any backlash. And yeah, if it wasn't for Code Switch, not only just for the connection that I was given, but also the courage that I was given and the help in order to public speak, I wouldn't have had this opportunity. So I was very grateful. Yeah.
So I'll be touching on another youth justice achievement, and I'll be talking about Deja Dunlap, mentioned before. So Deja was featured in the PBS special series on the School to Prison Pipeline. So here are some data highlights. So high school students participated in the 9-month Youth Justice Fellowship Program, which is what we just touched on. And these girls, they were matriculating into service into the Youth Advisory Board, which we're all on today, and it currently guides all of Code Switch programming. The Youth Justice Fellows were featured as guest speakers at community events throughout the Valley from years of 2020 to 2023. And like Nika touched on, I would say that this definitely honed in on creating more confidence for myself. And I would say making me more confident public speaker, more sure of what I'm going to say, and making me more sure that I am worthy of doing the work I'm doing, even though I may be a youth and younger than some other people.
Okay, so here at Code Switch, we also find it important to incorporate healing. And one of the ways that we do this is having our cultural immersion experience. So we had the opportunity to visit Ghana for homegoing. It was an amazing, amazing experience. One of the first times that I ever traveled out of the country, and it was absolutely beautiful to learn about our rich ancestry and history while connecting and loving on the culture we learn about while being there. There's just so much rich history. We had the opportunity to visit the slave castles and the river where the last bath was taken. And it was a lot emotionally, but it felt really good to just kind of connect to, like my ancestors, who I was at some point in time, and just where we come from. And it was absolutely beautiful. We also have annual retreats. So this is where we have like critical mentorship experiences for girls, women, and gender expansive individuals, as well as community friends that are focused on the socio-emotional well-being, physical and mental wellness, leadership development, civic engagement, and community-based advocacy. So there are just so many entities that kind of comprise Code Switch, and on that together, we are really grateful because the work that we do, it is a lot. It can be really, really heavy, but just to see the impact of our work and being able to have these opportunities, like going to a different country and learning about like the history there and just the significance of that, and coming together for the retreats where we get to work more on the work that we are passionate about, is something that's really significant to us. We also have culturally affirming self and collective care exercises like art therapy, dancing, yoga, sound baths, spa treatments, team building exercises, and so forth. It's really a beautiful experience. I love doing yoga at our last retreat earlier this year in January. It was really, really nice. But yeah.
Okay, so now that you've heard about our experiences and the way that we lead in Code Switch, we want to give some tips for leading as youth of color. This is if you are youth in this space, or if you know of youth in your lives, in your community. These are some amazing tips that have come from us that we've written all down. If you can, feel free, take a screenshot, take a picture, whatever it is. But these are the tips that we would give to youth of color, whether it's like reflect on your strengths and weaknesses, understand who you are as a leader, understand how you contribute or to your community, and that can look like a plethora of ways. There are so many ways for you to contribute to your community. It doesn't have to look like what everyone else is doing. You are unique and you are yourself, and whatever way you want to show up is valuable and is amazing. Also, surround yourself with positive people and peers. Surround yourself with people who see you as the person you are and can uplift your voice. Set personal goals and seek out support systems to achieve them. It is always great to have a mentor. Tanya has been my mentor for a while, and she has instilled in me a lot of amazing advice and just allowed me to really uplifted me to support me in so many ways to achieve so many things. So it is always amazing to get yourself a mentor, whether it is someone in your community, someone at work, an organization, whatever it may be. Also use affirming and direct language to speak your truth. Make sure that you are heard. Your voice is valuable, and no matter what space you are. So it's always important to uplift yourself and be able to really talk about whatever you want to. If you have an idea, say it. If you want to make a decision, do it. Don't allow anyone to put you down. Take your studies seriously, know your rights, and insist that your school provides you with what you need. I always find it valuable to engage in protest when you feel as if you aren't being given the resources, the help that you need in school, or if you are being treated wrongly in school, use your civic engagement to push for what you need in whatever spaces you are in. In clubs, organizations, community spaces, whatever it may be, to engage within your community and really test how you are as a leader. Leadership is not something that you just one day, just boom, you have it and it's like, wow, I'm a leader. This is amazing. But it is a practice that you work on every single day, and it encompasses public speaking, collaboration, teamwork skills, organizational skills, whatever it may be, but it is something that you work on every single day. So what better way to practice that than by trying to be a leader in your community? And lastly, insist on joy by doing fun things. Being a leader is always seen as like the hard, tough work that you have to do, but it's also, again, very, very important to engage in self-care and just joy. Allow yourself to have some fun, even as you are leading.
So here are some things you can do to promote youth leadership for youth of color, and I encourage you to do these whichever category you fall in, if it's family and community or organizations and schools. So family and community, provide support, have positive family communication, get involved in your students' schoolwork, and just be the light that they need. Provide a positive, responsible role models for other adults, peers, and their siblings. You should have expectations, have good expectations, high ones that are also achievable. So expect your young person to do well. You should also spend time together. Get to know your young person as a person rather than just as your child. Organizations and schools. So expect commitment from youth, have a caring, inclusive, and racially just school climate. And by doing that second one, you will definitely gain a lot of trust and support from the youth that you will be helping out and serving. So have clear rules and consequences. Also provide positive and responsible adult role models for them to follow and look up to. Use restorative approaches to community and relationship building. Use an engaging, culturally relevant, and responsive curriculum that also focuses on race and racism and teaches truth. So not watering down history. And then also sustain educators and mentors that match their lived experience and racial, socio-cultural background. And lastly, for both, please expect youth to do well and support them so they can carry out that expectation.
So now we will get into our Q&A section of this presentation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And yeah, we'll just answer them as they come in.
Okay, I think, one of the first questions that I see in the chat is, what advice would you suggest if I already have a youth group but want the youth to lead more? And Layla, y'all want to take this on first?
It's a really good question. Oh, wow. So honestly, I want to say just create like a welcoming environment for youth to just be themselves. Some of them may be shy at first, but if you really emphasize the importance of what it means to like be a youth and just kind of being involved in their community, as well as just like kind of curating to like their strengths and like what they could do within the group, this could kind of initiate them to lead more. It's really interesting though, because like I know that group dynamics work differently, but if you want youth involvement, give them the space to do that. Make sure that you're not that your voice isn't overriding theirs. Make sure that you actively listen to what they can contribute to the group, because at the end of the day, youth, we are the future. We are going to be taking on the legacy that you leave behind. So it's very intentional that you establish those relationships, and you just give them that space to be themselves, and just do what they're passionate about.
I would completely agree. And I would say if you already have a youth group, then I'm assuming and hoping that there's already trust built. So, like Layla mentioned, to encourage them and to let them know that you are the future of this world. So, encourage them to build the future that they want to see. And I believe that with you already having the foundation of trust, while also giving these encouraging words and also showing them the youth leadership that you want to see more, giving them examples of maybe what you would want to see, but also giving them the leadership capabilities and the control over what exactly they want to do. I believe that you'd be able to encourage the youth to lead more.
And the advice that I would give is definitely, coming from our pillars, critical mentorship and restorative justice are one of the greatest ways to help with having youth lead more. Critical mentorship, meaning to basically have a relationship with the youth where you are not only teaching them, but also learning from them, and having, like, you're breaking down the hierarchies. Let it not be a space where it's I'm the adult and I'm looking down on youth, but rather it's an equal footing. You both are engaging with one another and in this like circular motion, teaching while also learning from each other. So having a space that intentionally does that really allows them, or allows the youth to feel like, oh, like I can lead, like what I say is heard, like my opinions are valued. So it gives them a little more oomph. But in terms of intentionally doing so, that's where the restorative justice practices come in. And that can look like a various amount of ways, whether that's the language that you use. That's very important, having intentional language with the youth that is restorative and allows them to be able to speak for themselves. Within the youth group, you can engage in creating community agreements with the youth where it's set, where everyone agrees on it, and allow them to engage with it and say, hey, within my community, I would like to be respected. I would like to see this happen. I would like to see that happen. And then you can put those community agreements on a wall where y'all meet, knowing that, of course, these community agreements are always able to change and move along with the group that you're in, but it's always a good foundation to start off of. That way, there's a good understanding of how everyone will engage in the space. And then, of course, engaging in restorative justice circles with the youth, rather than, I guess, teaching them, and that's just it. A restorative justice circle allows everyone in the space to be able to feel as though, or not only just feel, but actually be able to contribute to the space and say, whether it's how they're feeling or their ideas, or just, how is this activity to you? And everyone can talk about it and reflect on it and just really learn from the space. So I would say for me, those are some of the best ways, just not only engaging in a relationship that is equal with the youth, but also putting an intentional practice to ensure that the space that they're in allows them to be able to lead and allows them to feel as if they have that support to lead. Thank you, Kathy, for asking that question. The next
what wonderful insights. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sorry.
I was just saying what wonderful insights. That was such a great and thorough answer to that question. And you do have another question about how you all are funded and if there are specific grant sources.
We are, currently we're working on the funding, but previously we have funding, whether it's from grants or also from partners and investors. We have been partnered with Tides. It's Tides, a force for social good. They are one of our biggest funders at the moment. Great partnership with them. We also have been funded by the New Schools Venture Fund, as well as the NACRJ, the Royal Bank, No Racism in Schools, Nonprofit Alliance, UNLV. Those are some of our partners and investors. But we also fundraise and have donations from our community. I think that wraps up all the ways that we are funded, whether it's grants, partners and investors, and then the donations that come from our community. But yeah.
Lots of diverse revenue streams. That's super awesome.
Yes.
So another question is, what are some ways youth can lead restorative practices in schools?
There's so many ways, honestly. So just kind of really giving like the reins to youth. So like youth can become like restorative leaders, and this can be seen as like them volunteering or even leading like the restorative justice programs. Like as we mentioned before, Rose from Concrete, Black Girls Matter survey, those are all curated by youth, our youth leaders that are involved in Code Switch. Giving that space to them to develop their passion projects, like as a youth justice fellow, and also getting the mentorship and training on how to facilitate some of these like restorative justice practices, like circles, mediations, and more. Engaging in these kinds of conversations where youth are able to talk about conflicts that they may have experienced, like while in these spaces, and come towards like more of an understanding and resolve some of these issues that they are facing and experiences. Also just advocating in general, youth are able to like present like ideas to like their school administration. So I know like with Naika, they help pass the bill from their own experience with hair discrimination in these school environments. And just overall being able to be a leader, being able to advocate, having those environments where their voice is not just valued, but it's also heard and worked on from there. It's not just something like if I were to say like, hey, I'm experiencing this problem and there's something that needs to be done about it. We take that and we actually implement that into policies on how we can change and prevent this from happening with Black girls, youth, gender expansive youth that may be experiencing these same issues. So there's a lot of different ways. I've only listed a few, but there's so many different ways that youth can be involved and be leaders.
I would also add that some ways that youth can lead restorative practice in schools is like, as Layla said, we have worked with doing after school programming in schools, and Code Switch, one of our versions of an after school program or being in schools that we host Sankofa sister circles in schools. And we currently are about to have a partnership with a school to host restorative justice circles there. But with that, youth can always, if you know you're like, get in contact with your administrator, get in contact with teachers, find an advisor, whatever it may be, but you can also lead, restore, or collaborate and work with someone who is an expert in restorative justice first, of course, work with someone there and then organize with them, work with them, collaborate with them, and bring that expert or whether it's a community organization or whatever it be, to come to your school and lead restorative justice circles there. As well as I think there are currently some schools who are also, if you keep in touch with your or are updated with what's happening with your school board and your superintendent, there are some schools across the country that are determining whether they should put restorative justice practices into their schools for, I think, disciplinary actions as well as other after school things like that. So you can also get engaged in that way and advocate for restorative justice practice to be implemented into your school.
I'm so excited hearing about everything. Oh, I'm so sorry. Anaya, please.
Just real quick, I was just going to piggyback off of what they both said. I would say for me, I got involved with my BSU and I was present for 2 years, and that kind of gave me a leeway into getting started in those practices. And for example, I got invited to go to the board meetings with these higher up adults that I thought were, I don't have enough power or voice to be in the same space. And then being shown that I did, even though I am still quote unquote just in high school, that really gave me the power and confidence to know that my voice is just as important as theirs, even though they may be on the board or they may be a principal or this or that. So I would say encourage those youth in the schools to get involved in clubs and get involved in, even if they just go sit in at the board meetings, because the decisions that these adults make really impact the youth as well.
I really appreciate the perspective of it's not just involving the youth, but it's making sure that everyone is aware of how to involve the youth and what matters and having them like present in the room. So how do middle school aged girls get involved?
I would say, well, involved within Code Switch, Rose from Concrete, our program, or Lord, my brain just died a little bit. But Rose from Concrete, the program that I lead, our summer peer mentorship program, does involve middle-aged girls and that or are in the area. Since the program starts from grade 4 and then goes to grade 8, middle school girls would be a part of that, and they would be able to engage themselves there. As well as engaging themselves in the Sankofa Sister Circles that we host, and then just as what is it called? Oh, my brain just died a little bit. But our program that we have with our teachers, they can also be involved that way. That is our Transformative Justice Educator Fellowship. Since our teachers do go into their schools and host Restorative Justice Sister Circles there, as well as connecting the youth that they have with Code Switch, they can also work in middle schools and engage the middle school girls there with restorative justice practices, connection with Code Switch, and just community and support and mentorship as well.
Okay, wanted to make sure I didn't interrupt anybody if they wanted to add additional comments. Do you all have plans to expand to other states? If so, how can another state support a program like yours if funding was not an issue?
Oh, that is I love that. If funding was not an issue, what a great world. I would say currently we are going into other states is something that we want to do. At the moment, we are in a very transitional stage. We're toning down just a little bit, but in the future, we have had some other states that we collaborate with while Code Switch is based in Nevada. Like Anaya said here, we've worked with Sacramento before and are currently still working, have some people from Sacramento. So we have engaged and of course are open to engaging with other states. At the moment, it's a little iffy, but in the future, definitely want to. It is one of my biggest dreams to have Code Switch be nationwide and have youth all over the country be able to be amplified and engage in youth leadership. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. And then Tanya, you can add on to that.
Mm-hmm. I think Naika was being really generous with sharing that it might be hard to think about if funding was not an issue because it is an issue currently for us, which speaks to why we are sort of slow rolling things and really leaning into our transition to youth leadership. But I will say that we're always open to engaging with folks from other states. We call it freedom dreaming. It's possible that we can freedom dream things together that we haven't imagined as a group about how we can partner. And then 2 programs that I think lend themselves to working with other states is one, our Teacher Educator Fellowship. We welcome teachers from all over to be part of that fellowship when it's running, because we can do both on ground and virtual. We can also customize that fellowship for specific sites. And then, as Naika said, our Sankofa Sister Circle, which will relaunch in January, is a virtual circle. So it's an excellent opportunity for schools to partner with us to maybe provide some intentional engagement for students who are looking for a safe and brave space to cultivate their identity, self-love, relationships, mentorship, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so going in a slightly different direction, how do you all feel about land and labor acknowledgements becoming performative? For example, a libation is active compared to a labor acknowledgement. I don't know if you all are familiar with libations, pouring libations.
I am familiar with pouring libations. And I would say that The land and labor acknowledgements, what's important is not only the intention, it's definitely the intention put behind it, but also the effort after. Like our land and labor acknowledgements, while it is, of course, it's important to acknowledge the fact that this land was, it is not only taken care of, inhabited, and has a history of decades and centuries of culture from Native Americans that experienced colonialism and white supremacy. And it's important to acknowledge that while also not only just saying, hey, this happened, but also taking the time afterwards to do the research and get engaged with your community and the Native American people that are still definitely here and are working hard within their communities to create change. So it's important to me when it comes to a land and labor acknowledgement that it's not just saying, okay, there were Native Americans here, but it's doing the work to do the research, understand who is the person, who are the Native American communities that are in your neighborhood, in your community, in your state, whatever it may be, and then doing the work afterwards to do that research and potentially go into your community, volunteer your time, or just go to understand and engage and come into community with the Native American people there as well. And as an organization as us that are virtual, unfortunately we can't pour, or I haven't seen pouring libations virtually, so one of the best ways for us to show that is through a land and labor acknowledgement. But yeah, does anyone else want to add on to that?
I totally agree with you, Naika. I think it's totally valid, especially since land and labor acknowledgements have been increasingly used, and unfortunately, they have been utilized more as a tool rather than for authenticity reasons. But I think that it is very important as we move towards like active acknowledgement. So being able to tie your acknowledgements into action. So after like following that, you commit to like supporting these communities, indigenous-led initiatives, like like donating to land trusts and more, but also discussing ways to address like inequities that these communities may be facing, especially tied to like exploitation of like labor and stuff, but also just really not using it for performative reasons. You want to invite involvement to actively reflect and share and engage these type of acknowledgements, and also being sure to like follow up with the ongoing commitment to education and action for these communities.
Wow, such amazing, insightful answers. I have never considered it that way. The idea of tying the acknowledgement to an active practice, and the idea that it's not just what happens before when you're doing the research, but also after you've done the research and done the acknowledgement, what are your next steps? I really appreciate those insights. What would you want in a policy for restorative practices to ensure youth voice and representation?
Mm. Anaya, Layla, you want to take those on first? I have a habit of talking a lot.
I can say something quick that came to mind. I would definitely say having maybe like guidelines that encourages, okay, we have 5 adults representing this group. Can we match the number with youth? Can we have 5 or 7 youth that are able to speak up and hold those same practices? That's just a little something that I thought of in order to have the youth represented, and also shown that they are, shown that there is no like hierarchy to that.
Yeah, I agree as well. I just think that having youth-centered leadership as a whole is something that's very, very important. You want to establish like these youth advisory boards or even councils, so this way youth are able to collaborate with educators and actively engage with them and have like their voices heard, instead of just like being talked down on what they should be doing, instead what they think is best. So I definitely think that this increases like representation and just like diversity with different ideas that are being shared. I also think that it's important to provide these types of opportunities in order for youth to actually be able to do what they are passionate for. So like trainings on how like youth can facilitate different like restorative justice practices, like even with conflict resolution and just active listening and engagement.
And I wholeheartedly agree with what Anaya and Layla are saying. And definitely not only agreeing with that, I would say that it's definitely important to create, in terms of if like a part of your school board, a part of your school community, whatever it may be, to create a committee or council of youth that are a part of the decision making when it comes to the policies that are created, or just how if you ever need, if there's new policies, the youth are involved in those decision making, or they are they're consulted when it comes to decision making. But it's also important to be very intentional with that. I know for me, I think growing up in Nevada, we had this, I'm forgetting what the name was, but it was this program where they would have one youth member from the school be a part of parent and superintendent meetings. And being a part of that, it was shown with the face of saying, this is our way of having youth representation and youth voice. But after you were given that role, it was kind of silence. Like, you came to a meeting and they didn't really talk to you. There was not a lot of intention actually put behind that, of actually valuing the youth voice and representation. So I would definitely say that in policy for restorative practices to ensure youth voice and representation, I'd want to see intentional, like showing like, okay, they'll meet at this time, we'll talk to them, they will be a part of contributing to decision making, to consultations, to this, to that. Definitely agree with having the youth engaged in learning about restorative practices, and as well as that intentional restorative practice within the committee work or council. And then I had something else, but I'm completely forgetting at the moment. But yeah, I would say, oh my God, it was in my brain, but I forgot it. But yeah, I would say that's very important. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Well, if it comes back to you, we'd love to hear it. I think you all were touching on a really important concept of the idea of tipping point. And it's that if there's a group, like a marginalized or minority group of people, and then a majority group of people who tends to be like in power, if you have at least 70% of the folks in the room be from the less empowered group of people, then the conversation tends to even out. Like the amount of input coming from both of the groups tends to be more equal. And Naika, what you were saying about having one youth in the room maybe isn't going to get the results that you're looking for. And I think Anaya Mara, you were mentioning the idea of like having equal, if not more, youth in a space than adults. And I think that's like an important aspect of communication and of equity that folks tend to overlook. So statement and a question here. I'm so thankful you were able to journey together to Ghana, especially for the profound ancestral and healing components. How did that experience shift your dreams or work? And or how else do you make space for joy and adventure while doing this meaningful and hard work?
Honestly, so do you want to go or? Okay. So honestly, like the immersive trip to Ghana was my way of getting involved with Code Switch, and honestly, like that was just, it's been history since then. It really opened my eyes into like what exactly restorative justice is, because I wasn't really familiar with it at the time. And I just felt this like as we had the space, like when we were doing our restorative circles, our sister circles, like even in Ghana, I had a deep appreciation for it, because this was like the first time that I felt that like my voice was valued. And I definitely wanted to bring this back into my community, especially with youth and Black girls, gender expansive youth that may not have that kind of space to be themselves and be able to share that and have access to opportunities, like going into like a different country. But also it just motivated me more to continue to be like a youth leader, because I never really realized like the work that I was passionate about and some of the stuff that I was already doing like in the school was tied to restorative justice practices. And being able to come together and curate all this joy is something that I think that everyone should have the opportunity to just engage with. And overall, it just motivated me more to be involved and actively just participate with Code Switch as well as like my own community, because I think that this is a great opportunity that everyone should have the space to do.
So I'll touch on the joy component, and I would say while I was in Ghana, I noticed that a lot of people who live there are very happy and very positive. Even while we were still at, for example, the site that the last bath site, or it's now been named the Door of Return, when we were there, it as disheartening, obviously, as thinking about slavery is, they were very just positive about we have come, look how far we have come. And I know for me, I can hold a lot of anger into what has happened, about what has happened in the past, but seeing that and seeing how just okay they are with how life is right now, and how, like I said, they have said have overcome this, this, and that. Now we are still going to learn about our history because it is important. It does play a role in life today. But yeah, just seeing how positive they were about, yes, this thing has happened, but we're moving on now onto bigger, obviously, and better things. So that definitely inspired me to look at things at a glass half full rather than half empty, and encouraged me to just be better, do better, and move forward in these spaces that I hold.
I would definitely say that before going on the trip to Ghana, I had the quote in my mind that like, you are your ancestors' wildest dreams. And that usually, even before that, it pushed me forward. And I was always thinking like, oh, for context, I'm Haitian. So I know that my Haitian ancestors are, like, in my mind, one of the greatest revolutionaries of history. And the work that they've done has altered history for the better. And they are just like, every day I'm like, I'm Haitian, so I got to fight for justice. I got to be bold with my work. I have to show up, because what other way would my ancestors want me to do that than by being the person that I am, by showing up for my community, by showing up for change. But then going to Ghana, did know the historical context that a lot of Haitian people came from that region in Ghana, or that region in Africa. And it was just like being on that land and feeling that this is probably where my ancestors were before they were Haitian it was very like surreal. It was like, wow, like we could have stayed here, but we didn't. And it was very disheartening. Like, I'm laughing, but it was just like, there's a lot of pain behind that, just knowing of that reality. But after experiencing that, and after seeing what they went through and learning about just like how horrific those atrocities were, it motivated me even more. Because in my mind, it was like my ancestors went through all of this. And while, yeah, life can seem a little bleak, I don't want my life to end in a way that doesn't make them proud, or I don't want to allow myself to be consumed by something that I think is so like, oh, this is so horrible. But one, life can be a lot worse. And two, I don't want to allow that sadness to consume me in a way that doesn't allow me to just experience the happiness, the joy, the life that they lived for me to be able to live through. So with that in mind, I came back and I was just like, I was even more motivated to continue the work that I do in my community, with the intention of wanting to not only make my ancestors proud, but just keep living and continue the ancestral path that they did. And how do I make space for joy and adventure while doing this meaningful and hard work? That is an amazing question. And I wish I knew. That's one thing that I got to work a little harder on. I am not that great at making space for myself, and balancing work and joy. But currently it's by, I guess, just allowing my friends, my Fountain family, my sisters, or my Code Switch family to just I love to surround myself with love and then engage with the people in my life to be able to experience joy, whether it's study sessions or going to a poetry night or whatever it may be.
It is all a part of the journey, and we're all moving towards our best selves and taking good care of ourselves and all of the things that help us maintain our spirits and our minds so that we can stay engaged and involved, which is so beautiful. So I have a question, since we have asked all the questions in the chat, and I wanted to ask you all about, how do you help folks engage with affirming and direct language? One of the difficulties I've had in this latest iteration of being in school is trying to be direct in my language and trying to be upfront with my professors, and like finding that it's a difficult space to navigate sometimes.
I would say that direct and affirming language is something that I definitely struggled with before Code Switch. Before Code Switch, I would just like yell at people. So it was like, or either yell or just not say anything. But I would definitely say, one, learning and engaging with restorative practice is very important, because while like just telling you to like, oh, use I statements, if you don't like truly engage with yourself and understand like, why am I saying these I statements? Why is it important to lead with my own feelings and be able to communicate them in a way that's restorative and productive to the conversation? Why is intentional communication important? Those things, learning that, having that understanding really allows you to do it in practice, like in your own life. So I can tell you all the things, just like, oh yeah, just use I statements, do this, do that. But unless you actually truly understand it yourself, it's kind of just like I think a lot of people like, oh, that's a hippy dippy, like, oh yeah, I feel like that's not going to do anything. But to me, it's like saying that first, that I feel statement really centers yourself in that conversation, but allows for the other person to have the understanding of your emotions rather than just, I don't like what you did. Then it's like, it's more combative rather than, I feel hurt because you did this to me. And like that allows for more productive and more very intentional and engaging conversation. So allowing yourself to really understand why you want to engage in intentional conversation in that manner really helps. It really grounds you, and it really allows you to move forward using that practice. And then in terms of after doing the research and doing the understanding and engaging in that work, doing it in person, what I say really helps me is by doing it in everything rather than just doing it when you find a problem. Because if you solely wait for, oh yeah, I'm going to wait for someone to do something to me and then I'm going to be restorative, it's just like, it's a lot harder to do so. But if you do it in your everyday life, it can be like, oh, hey guys, I actually, I feel really tired. I don't really want to go out today, but I love the fact that y'all are so excited, and I can't wait to go somewhere else next time. Like intentional language, you center yourself in your emotions, but you're telling people, like, it can be something as simple as that, but you're still engaging in intentional conversation, and it can look like anything, any day, but allowing you to do that throughout everything allows it for, one, it lessens the chances of you having to have a conversation about that, because you've already had the foundations of a restorative practice in your everyday life. And then two, when it does come to you actually, speaking to someone and trying to solve a solution, it comes a lot more, like, it's a lot easier to do it because you've been practicing it for such a long time.
I'll just piggyback on the intentionality aspects of our language. I would say naturally, I'm a very fast talker, and Code Switch has taught me to slow down and be very intentional and say exactly what I mean. I would have to agree with the I statement. I know, speaking with my mom, whenever I want to share my emotions, she reminds me rather to use statements that are kind of blaming the other person. So for example, if my friend hurt my feelings, rather than saying, you hurt my feelings, I can say, my feelings were hurt when this was said, or my feelings were hurt when you said this, and that creates a more, I would say, more comfortable space. And then I would say, even for us in our Code Switch community, instead of calling each other sisters, we started to say siblings. So we include everyone. And so our language is more intentional and also inclusive.
Oh, and I wanted to add one last thing. It just popped up in my mind. One of the most important things about, or that we talk about in Code Switch, is that I know when I first started doing intentional communication work, at first I was like, I'm doing it because I want everyone else to feel safe. But if you are prioritizing other people's comfortability, sometimes it makes it a lot harder for you to communicate how you're feeling exactly, because you're just like, oh, well, if I say this, it might make tension arise, or if I say this, it might do that. Safety looks like a lot of different things, and sometimes it can be weaponized to actually put you down rather than uplift you, where people can be like, I don't feel safe that you said that, when you were actually just talking about your feelings, especially as Black women or femme identifying people. A lot of the times we are seen as like aggressive or in other forms of that nature when we're strictly just talking about our feelings. So I would say in a world where being a people pleaser is a very common trait, it is also important to really learn how to not prioritize other people's safety and compromise yourself. Like, really take the time to say, what I'm feeling right now deserves to be heard. Rather than, I feel hurt, but it's going to make it awkward. So I'm not going to say it. But you feel hurt, and that's important. And especially like if you surround yourself in a space where people will truly value you and support you and love you, you should be able to say those things. And even in spaces where that might not be as a parent, it's still very, very important to speak your truth and be heard and show up as your full, authentic self.
Yes. I love to hear it. I love to see it. That's so beautiful. Thank you all so much. So we have come to the end of our Q&A time, and I believe we're going to put up a slide with some additional information, and then we'll have some final comments and we'll close out.
Yes. So first off, thank you everybody for listening to us. This was an amazing experience, an amazing showcase of youth leadership with my wonderful board members, as well as my founder and co-director. I know that there were some questions about how to contact us or how to get in contact with us to just learn about us. So here is our contact information. If you want to take a screenshot, please do. I know that Tanya also, I believe, shared some of our contact information in the chat. And I can do it as well. I'm going to put it in the chat right now. That just includes, there you go. That includes everything that's on that slide. I cut off my own name. Whoopsie daisies. The end should be there. But yeah, that's how you can get in contact with all of us. But before we leave, I want to just drop off a call to action. These are some day-to-day things that you can do to support and amplify youth leadership. Number one, support us. Little plug. I am very happy and proud of this organization. I think it's doing a great job of amplifying youth leadership. So first way you can do that is, of course, by supporting us. You can follow us on our socials at CodeSwitch LV. I think we have that for our Instagram as well as our Facebook, which is like CodeSwitch just for Girls of Color. And then you can also become a community partner, get in contact with us, partner up with us, learn from us, whatever it may be. Just come into space with us, join our community. You can also try to find a youth-led or youth-focused organization in your own community and volunteer there. And volunteering can look like a variety of things. It can also look like mentoring youth. You can also, this isn't just something you have to do in the organization. You can also do this in your day-to-day life. Mentor youth, provide the youth with resources, your wisdom and community, but also take the time to learn from the youth. We have a lot of amazing insights, if I do say so myself. And the last one is to intentionally take time to unlearn adultism. I love that you are all in this space to learn about youth leadership. It's also important to realize that sometimes we do have internalized adultism. Even as youth, sometimes I do catch myself going, I'm just a kid. I don't have anything to say. But it's like, oh, nope, turn that off. Your opinions are valued. And sometimes as adults, that internalized or that adultism is in there, even though you might not think it is. So take the time to do the research, to unlearn it. And I did provide a resource here from Tori Weston Searden. It's their book about critical mentoring, which talks about one of our pillars that I mentioned before, but also about intentionally taking the time to see youth as equal to you rather than just a kid. But yeah, so I want to end us off with an amazing quote. Again, a little grounding from Angela Davis. I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. So if you are in your community and you cannot accept the fact that there are not youth leaders in your community, change that. Go and uplift some youth, amplify youth voices, engage with youth leadership. Do what you can. But yeah, that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. And I think we're going to turn it over to John now.
And I realized I was muted the whole time. Thank you all so much for all of that incredible wisdom and engagement around these really important pieces. Plug for our next month's webinar on December 18. We will get to see Michaela switch roles, and instead of a host, Michaela will be one of the guests for the webinar in December. That will be on the Little Book of Restorative Justice for Campus Sexual Harms, a holistic approach for colleges and universities to address sexual misconduct and relationship violence. Michaela and Rachel Ross-Sawatsky were the authors of a recently published Little Book, and they will be our guests for the webinar on December 18th. So join us for that. In addition, as always, please visit our site where you can find archive of webinars from the past, including this one in the next day or two, and also to partner with us and get connected to some of these other wonderful organizations doing really, really important and wonderful work. Thank you again, and see you next time.